So, dear friends, welcome to the Sutta study group this afternoon. Big welcome to the Venables from Aranya Bodhi. Thank you for joining us. We have Ayya Suwijana here with us. How wonderful. Let's all take the opportunity to pay respects to Ayya Suwijana, who's just appearing on the camera there. Let's all bow 3 times. Together to big welcome, Ayya. Wonderful to see you today.
Welcome
to everyone, also to Venerable Satima, and we have Venerables Kachina and Dhammadharini with us also today for the study group. And we have Anagarika Padibada and lay friend Satina also. So let's begin, as usual, with some time of meditation, just so we can settle in and find a spacious, peaceful start so that we can open our hearts and minds to these teachings. So please feel free to be comfortable and to settle in, and I'll give about 10 minutes for us to just all peacefully arrive. So, dear friends, we can open the eyes, open the gaze, open the heart to the group. Time to start investigating the suttas. And big welcome again to everybody, especially the Venables with us today, and all good friends who've joined us out there on Zoom. This is an open session. It's on a live stream, so you're welcome to appear or not appear as you wish. We're going to be continuing the chapter on Vedana, on sensation or feeling in Samyutta Nikaya, Vedana Samyutta, chapter 36. And I mentioned last week the infirmary sutta, the teaching the Buddha gave when he was visiting a sort of care facility. And so I think we'll look at this sutta, and we're going to look at the Bhikkhu Bodhi translation together. So allow me to pop this on the screen. This is number 7, chapter 36, sutta number 7. Here we go. And it's called the sick ward. So I'm actually going to invite dear friend Venerable Kachayana to give you a different voice, to do the readings for us. Here we go. Just move the view a little bit so you can see both of us. There. Thank you so much, Venerable Kachayana, for offering to read for us. And so let's begin. Yay.
Right, the sick ward. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Vaisali in the great wood in the hall with the peaked roof. Then in the evening, the Blessed One emerged from seclusion and went to the sick ward, where he sat down in the appointed seat and addressed the bhikkhus thus. Bhikkhus, a bhikkhu should await his time mindful and clearly comprehending. This is our instruction to you. And how, bhikkhus, is a bhikkhu mindful? Here, bhikkhus, a bhikkhu dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having put away covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. He dwells contemplating feelings in feelings, mind in mind, phenomena in phenomena, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having put away covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. It is in such a way that a bhikkhu is mindful.
Great. So perhaps we can have a little pause here and just to take in so far the Buddha's advice to those who are unwell. One should await one's time, mindful and clearly comprehending. This is our instruction to you. It's really marvelous, isn't it? It's so sort of clear and what's the word? Unvarnished? Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just there's nothing flowery here. No expressions of sympathy, no expressions of concern or anxiety. No, this is what we want to do. Await our time, mindful and clearly comprehending. This is the Dharma. I find that very powerful as a beginning to this teaching. And then the next paragraph, we can hear, can't we, the resonance with the Satipatthana Sutta, the Kayanupassana, aware of the body, Vedana-nupassana, aware of feelings, Chitta-nupassana, aware of the state of mind, and Dhamma-nupassana, aware of the mental phenomena. This is clearly a reminder for most of us, isn't it, of the Satipatthana Sutta, how to be mindful. these four resorts. So let's come away from the text for a moment and just open up the view and see if anybody would like to come in with any comments, reflections, questions on this verse. It's like straight in, isn't it? Straight into the teachings. I can't think of the word, but it's completely there's no introduction, there's no small talk here. This is what we do. This is the way to relate to life, to sickness, to death. Ayya Suwijana, I think, is going to, yes, please, Ayya, to come in here.
I think when he's talking about waiting his time, I think that maybe some of this bhikkhu may be passing away. They're so severely ill. Out of compassion, the Lord Buddha comes and just reminds him of a basic, really very basic teaching. But I've had the experience when being severely ill. I had a food poisoning, and contemplating the body, I could feel the internal organs. I could, all I could do is just lay there because I was so weak from being sick. And so it was a meditation retreat, being ill, and contemplating the body particularly, but Vedana also unpleasant and maybe pleasant, just to kind of doze a little bit. And then what arises in the mind. But mental states, all of it, definitely. When one is ill, this is just a perfect opportunity to use all four of the Satipatthanas. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much, Ayya Suwijana. Isn't it the case? I can only just completely resonate with what you're sharing, Ayya, because just noticing, when we're really not well, it's like we can't do much else in a way. And how helpful is that we can only really lie there and be aware of what's happening. Difficult to read, difficult to distract, difficult to watch movies. Good. We can only really, just feel these processes and maybe feel the edge we're at. Where we could topple, we could fall into passing away at this point. This could be it. And that we can open to that possibility. It's such an opportunity, isn't it, Ayya? Samita.
Hello. I'm so sorry. I have a very basic question for you. I want to understand if in Pali it also says feelings in feelings, because I want to understand why the word in is used here, like body in body, feelings in feelings. So I'm sorry about asking this basic question.
Basic questions are so welcome. Any questions whatsoever, so welcome. Thank you, Smita. Vedanu pasi viharati. What does it mean? Feelings in feelings. And this is a really kind of very important question, because it's something that's debated and discussed a great deal in relation to Satipatthana Sutta, and also we can see here in many places this statement, feelings in feelings, also mind in mind, body in body. What does it mean? And I can only share my sense, and then let's open up for anyone else to come in, please. My sense is it's an invitation to strip away anything other than that. So, when we're feeling a feeling or we're feeling feelings, notice the tendency perhaps to add extra. perceptions, thoughts, past, future, to embellish our experience. It's almost like I'm saying this sutta is so unembellished. That was the word. It's unembellished. It's straight. A very direct and clear teaching. In the same way, when we're observing reality, the Buddha's inviting us to just observe that which is happening, that which is real, and notice the conditioning that we may have that's almost very quickly can cause us to add to that experience in some way. So that's my understanding, Smita. It's just to feel what you feel. Not to name it, not to label it, not to add anything in, not to connect it to anything else, just this feeling. Anyone else like to come in with this wonderful question from Smita? Any other comments on this particular question?
You know, there are a number of different translations out there of this, because it is actually a point that has been debated, as you said. So others I've heard are like the body as a body, feelings as feelings, etc. Or Bhante Sujato, I think, says meditates observing an aspect of the body or an aspect of feelings. And then he has his whole story of why he chose that translation.
Why did he choose that translation? Do we know?
See, I'm not sure I'm going to accurately explain it, and I would refer you to his actual explanation. But what I remember of it, I think, is that in the Satipatthana Sutta, it's giving you all these different ways of doing it, right? Looking at, for instance, the parts of the body as one way of looking at an aspect of the body, right? Or the elements, or the breath, or any of these things are like taking some aspect of the body or taking some aspect of feelings and looking at that. It's like, I think that may have been part of it. But anyway, I'm not certain I've got his whole reasoning down for it. So
that's great. Thank you so much, Venerable. Yeah, that sense of focusing and separating things out and just being with what is actually one moment of experience, as it were, something along those lines. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. To notice, that there are, as Venerable Kachina is pointing out, there are these different translations which are helping us to tease out the meaning here. Feelings in feelings, an aspect of feelings. How does that sit with you, Smita? Does this all make sense, or do you have any more questions coming up?
Yes, definitely. If you were to say contemplate, as in think about body as body, it would make more sense. So I realize that it is just a different translation, body in body, mind in mind. But what is the, Pali version? If you were to literally take the Pali words and read it, does it say mind in mind or mind as mind? Would there be, is it possible for me to find that out?
Yeah, totally. How would be best? Maybe to look at, if you were to go to Sutta Central, anybody, all of us, if we look at Sutta Central, we get the Pali and the English, and you can have them side by side. You can have a view where they're sort of paralleling or they're line by line. In whatever way, you can see the Pali and you can see the English, in this case, English. And you can also click on a Pali word and you can get the translation. You can get it in the dictionary there. So this is a way of studying the suttas, learning Pali bit by bit. The word is safe of feeling, Vedanu Pasi Viharati. It is like in feelings in feelings. But you could say feelings as feelings as well.
It's the locative case. So kaye is the locative form of kaya, body, and Vedana is the locative form. So locative form is what you use literally for in. Like there isn't a separate word for in. You change the form of the noun to make it in the noun. So that would be the most basic interpretation of the locative case, is usually in.
In. Locative, it makes you feel it's about where, isn't it? It's about the placement, the body in the body, not some other body, but this body here, these feelings here, you know. But it is, because it's more or less, Smita, translated as in or at, there isn't any more clarity in a way, looking at the Pali, but there is an invitation, isn't there, for us to tease out what is the meaning for me? How can I relate to this? How can I relate to it in my practice? I am reminded of the teaching where the Buddha is inviting a disciple who wants a very quick, concise, short version of the entire Dhamma teachings for reasons that are become very obvious, because his life is very short, his lifespan's very short. But the Buddha says to this disciple, in the seeing, let there just be the seeing. In the hearing, let there just be the hearing. This very famous teaching. So it's that sense of, can you just be aware of what's happening right now and let it be just that?
I see. So it would make more sense if they said, contemplate bare feeling in feeling, or bare mind in mind, something like that. But I understand it's, thank you so much for the explanation.
You're really welcome. And thank you for giving us this chance to really investigate. Yeah. How do we do this practice? Our minds have a tendency to complicate things, and actually the practice is a simplification or a coming to the essence of experience. And this is so valuable for us to consider. Thank you very much, Smita.
Thank you.
Ananaya.
Thank you.
Yeah, excuse me, Smita, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just saying thank you very much. Thank you.
Adi. Ananaya.
Well, this is just maybe a summarization, perhaps. And I apologize. The way my laptop is here, I can't. I'm looking like I'm in the shadow. I don't know how it appears to you. Anyway, but to me, when it says body and body, feelings and feelings, it's just that. It's not a story. There's no add-ons. There's no nothing. You're just simply with the feeling. If it's a feeling of sadness, you're with the sadness, etc. And then another would be is in translations, and I'm definitely not a Pali scholar, but what I've heard from other teachers is that you don't translate word for word. You have to read the sentence in Pali and then come to the sense of what is being said there. If you do just translation, even if you're translating from English into French or Spanish or something else, you can't really do it literally, word for word, because there are nuances in language that you have to take account of that you can't do when you're just doing it word by word. So it's like you get the sense of that, and obviously, like we've already said, one translator uses in, another one uses as, and they have their reasons for doing that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ananaya. Some wonderful additional clarity there around the meaning of this teaching, stripping away the inessential. Yeah, thank you very much. Tin Wei.
So this is kind of just something that I heard Ayya Khema say, like in every teaching, every practice, is to gear it towards the insights. So when I read body and body or feelings and feelings, it's pretty much what everybody has said. And then another layer is like, in particular, body and body, there's no self. It's you're working towards the wisdom of non-self. So that's kind of the uppermost, I guess, layer of achievement that we can hope for. And then feelings and feelings. I mean, also, right, the impermanence and suffering. But in particular, I think what, for me, when I read that repetition, it's like, oh, it's really pointing to the non-self. Thank you.
Sadhu. Thank you, Dinwi. Beautiful to bring in Ayya here. And that layer, or that hugely influential sense of selfhood that colors our experience. Yes, that this is also, the invitation is to be moving through that, to be maybe aware of that and see that. And as we notice that selfing, that sort of process, to be able to let go, let go, let go. And it's a process, right? It's but this is bringing in, actually, Dinwi, thank you for this, because you brought in, in the Satipatthana Sutta, there is the refrain after every teaching to notice the arising and passing, to notice the impersonal nature, therefore. So this is really good to, remember, and it's part of the advice from the Buddha, how to come to the essential, how to strip away all the additional layers that we put onto our experience. Wonderful. Thank you, Dinwi. And Cynthia.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I was going to pretty much say the same thing, that seeing the feeling like as a feeling, like it's not a personal feeling, it's not my feeling. Is super helpful in unhooking from the feeling, because when you're hooked, then you make a story. And if you can somehow realize it's not yours, it's just something arising and passing, attached to some memory that, oh, you hear my dogs in the background, sorry. This is why I'm mute. I was just at Pacific Hermitage, and I got a really long talk from Ajahn Siddhanta about that, because I was having a lot of feelings this week, and he reminded me about the impersonal nature of them, that they're just feelings, just see them as feelings instead of your feelings. And it was very helpful. Thank you.
Sadhu. That is so helpful, isn't it, Cynthia? So challenging. Maybe there's a kind of gradient of challenge. I often hear this, and I feel this way myself, that, the body, we can let go of the sense of control and selfhood around body to some extent. Feelings can be very intimate and close to the heart, and to see them as dhammas that arise and pass is less easy, but definitely extremely helpful and the way to go. And then mind, mental contents, thoughts, these feel very, very close to home base. And again, with thinking too, it's due to causes, and it follows its own karma. And just to see that the impersonal, as we're all pointing to this sense of not self, it's so helpful to watch the arisings and passings, and to be able to really step back and be free from that identification. Wonderful, everybody. Thank you all so much for your comments, reflections, and have a sense to perhaps move back to the sutta now, and we can see what the next section has for us. As Ayya Suwajana was saying, this is very likely somebody very unwell, and the Buddha speaking to perhaps a group of maybe patients in this sort of care facility. So let's go back to Venerable Kachina, if you'd like to read on a little bit for us.
All right. Yes. So again, the instruction was to await your time, mindful and clearly comprehending. And we've just heard what it means to be mindful. But now the question is, how, bhikkhus, does a bhikkhu exercise clear comprehension? Here, bhikkhus, A bhikkhu is one who acts with clear comprehension when going forward and returning, when looking ahead and looking aside, when drawing in and extending the limbs, when wearing his robes and carrying his outer robe and bowl, when eating, drinking, chewing his food and tasting, when defecating and urinating, when walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, speaking, and keeping silent. It is in such a way that a bhikkhu exercises clear comprehension. A bhikkhu should await his time mindful and clearly comprehending. This is our instruction to you.
So a repetition there of the initial teaching, to be mindful and clearly comprehending. And then we have the broader teaching on, essentially, isn't it, all the bodily activities, all the kind of day-to-day activities. So not just when we're meditating formally, but in every part of our lives. Can we be simplifying, stripping away, noticing what's actually happening here? You know, when we're eating, when we're on the toilet, when we're moving around, how often we might be thinking ahead about where we're going or distracting ourselves from what's actually happening, and how helpful to come back to base, come back to the reality. Is so calming actually for us, isn't it? To be able to be present and to just do this much when we're eating. It's kind of tragic to me that we're receiving this nourishment, life, energy, and people can so often distract away from that into, I don't know, watching movies or chatting. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that there is this receiving that's happening. And it's a profound gift to be able to eat and to receive nourishment, whether we're samanas or not. It's a gift. Our training is to fully receive with great gratitude whatever we're offered to sustain our lives. And this is such a helpful teaching for us. But we can all do this and be grateful, you know, to have the nourishment that we need, even if we're picking and choosing it ourselves. How wonderful that we can do that we have this opportunity, and so forth. So to be really taking in the Buddha's instructions here and considering every kind of activity and how mindful can we be. Any comments, reflections on this topic? Again, we can note from Satipatthana Sutta, the very same instructions are found there, aren't they? In the Kaya section on seeing the body in the body, seeing the body as the body.
I couldn't raise my hand. I don't know why.
That's okay, Miriam. Come on in.
But I wanted to share that, for example, right now, like I'm trying to cook because I'm starving, and it was like timing didn't, but I didn't want to miss the Dharma talk, you know? So it is difficult with timing sometimes. Like last night, I was doing like my music, and I was like, oh my God, I have to like wash dishes. So I was literally washing dishes while listening to music, and I don't even remember when I washed dishes because I was so focused on the songs that sometimes like that, like staying focused on one thing, it becomes difficult because sometimes like you don't want to waste time, right? So you put everything in like one. I don't know how to explain that. So I wanted to know like what kind of practice can I do to, you know, not do it as often.
That's really great, Miriam, because this is like real life, isn't it? This is how it is for us. We can be very busy and we can be multitasking. And yes, the Buddha said, be aware of each movement. And so how can I do that and do all these other things I have to get done? And actually, I would just have great heart for that, just to notice maybe the sense of pressure there and to multitask mindfully? You know, if we are multitasking, can we be mindful about it? Can we do two things at once mindfully? And notice, you know, actually, my sense is that the more we pay attention to this body and these feelings, this mind, these thoughts, we tend to quite naturally, as the Buddha said in one of the suttas in Majjhima Nikaya, when we start really observing this experience, the tendency is to notice that, gosh, we're really running. Why don't we slow down and just start walking? Why walk? Why not just stand still? Actually, why don't I just sit down? Or even lie down? So the mind will quite naturally, if we pay attention, we will tend to calm down, slow down. And we can actually choose, of course, you know, how much activity we have in our lives and how busy we choose to be. We really can. And life goes at a very fast pace nowadays. Maybe people have always been saying this, I don't know. People certainly say it nowadays. We're going at a very fast pace. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot happening. But actually, this is a choice for, you know, it's a choice for us. And when we develop our practice, we may find life quite naturally calming, simplifying, and maybe slowing down. This is just a reflection. I don't know what you think about that, Marion. And I'm not in any way disagreeing that sometimes there's a lot to be done, and that's just how it is. Anything you'd like to come back with?
You know, I was listening to you guys when I was cooking, and there was well, I'm cutting vegetables right now, and I was listening to you guys like, be focused when you urinate, when you sleep, and I was literally cutting, like trying to breathe. Okay, let's focus on actually cutting vegetables. Trying to bring like what you're saying into like the moment. So I just thought I wanted to share that because I was literally listening and I was like, oh yeah, I gotta remember to breathe while I'm cooking.
That's really wonderful, Marion. And yeah, you know, whatever we're doing, it's all good. And we can just keep developing the mindfulness. And I find one thing very helpful if I'm feeling busy and I'm feeling like there's a lot to be done. You know, it's a very good time to focus on the breath or focus on the feet touching the ground. We can always do these things. And just to see how that has a sort of soothing and a calming quality. Mindfulness itself helps to uncomplicate things, you know, and see how much we can observe this. And whatever we're doing, however busy we are, we always have time to be mindful. Thank you, Marion. Linda.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, because I don't know a great deal about your tradition, but do you have like gathas you say or chanting you do? Because I know there's traditions where when it comes to doing like sort of mundane tasks like washing the dishes or cleaning the house and things, I remember with, for example, like with Thich Nhat Hanh in the Plum Village tradition, there was gathas for even answering the phone. And it's something you say in your head and you just it puts you in the moment. And so you're not like, your mind isn't all over the place. And I just wonder, and other people do chanting, they have like little chanting things they do while they're cleaning the house and things like that. And I just wondered, I don't know if you do that or not. I know in some Mahayana traditions, they do that and it keeps you focused and keeps you mindful. It keeps your mind from wandering all over the place and thinking about other things and sort of just focusing on what you're doing and not worrying about what you have to do next or what you have to do tonight, things like that. So I was just curious if you had that at all.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. That's a great question. I would say the emphasis looking at the early Buddhist teachings is not so much on adding in mantras or other ways of, you know, helping the mind to sort of rein itself in, as it were. But definitely, you know, these are techniques that can be very useful. And if the mind is very agitated, if we're very busy and our mind is scattered, we notice that, you know, we're feeling even more kind of chaotic than all the business around us that's going on, then we can, use phrases, use chantings, have a mantra to help us to, bring the mind to a place where it's just going along one channel rather than 5 different channels. But in the early Buddhist teachings, it's not so emphasized, I can say, but in Mahayana, much more emphasis. And also, I come from the Ajahn Chah tradition, and Ajahn Chah would teach his disciples to use the mantra Buddho, simple, very simple, one word, meaning awake, waking up, Buddha. And just to bring that word in every breath, Bu on the in-breath, Do on the out-breath. These sort of ways of helping ourselves to focus attention. Very good.
I found when I use that with cleaning and things like that, it goes a lot faster. So, because I don't like cleaning, but I don't know who does really, but I'm sure there's people that love it. But it's like I want to get it over with as quickly as possible. And I find when I do that, it goes, I don't know, it is like it goes a lot faster. It's a lot less painful to have to, actually do, especially cleaning the bathroom or something, which is probably the worst one. But I just found it works really well because it focuses your mind.
Yeah, I really get that. I mean, I could be a bit of a devil's advocate and say, is that a way of distracting yourself from the reality of the cleaning job? But whatever works, and just to be very aware, actually, to ask yourself, is this really working? Is it a way of distracting, or is it a way of focusing? And just to see for ourselves. But we can certainly bring in, can't we, a degree of uplift to any situation when we bring to mind the Buddha's teachings.
Yeah, as I said, it could be both. Like it's distracting, but it focuses you on what you're doing and then distracts you from the fact that you don't like it. So stop thinking about that for the moment and you focus. So you're not thinking, oh, I hate doing this. So you're not thinking about that anymore. You're just focusing on what you're supposed to be doing and getting it done as quickly as possible. So
thank you, Linda.
It does work though. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Sheila, hi.
Good afternoon, everyone. This conversation around mindfulness, for at least lay people who drive, that's where I find I do some of my best practice is when driving. And the intentionality of doing no harm and really being aware of driving and being on the road with others. And I just find that mindfulness, that activity and that movement really helps me, or I do use that opportunity to slow down and to generate and to be generous with others. And I see it unfolding in other parts of my life, but because driving is such a important part and large part of at least my maybe not daily life, but when I do have to get in the car to drive, I try to really bring mindfulness to that. I'm driving below the speed limit. I'm really mindful of being on the road, whether it's a street or a highway. And that has been really helpful. And so in a way, it's multitasking, but it is a form of multitasking, driving, and all of the cognitive activities that are required. But it's really made a big difference since I've intentionally brought mindfulness into driving, to the point where before I leave my house, I'll do a loving kindness meditation for all sentient beings. And that sets me up for wherever I'm driving to and back home. Thank you.
Sadhu. Thank you, Sheila. That's just the most beautiful description of driving practice. And, you know, most of us drive. I mean, the monastics, we don't, but we are passengers and we can apply it in that way. And yeah, and how lovely. Oh my goodness, to if everybody, you know, before getting behind the wheel, if we could all bring in such a good intention and a blessing for the journey, that's really valuable. Thank you so much, Sheila. Yeah, Ayya Suwijana.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we can move on with the sutta, because it's a very rich sutta, and some of what the questions people are asking are maybe even addressed as we go along. So I hope that's all right for me to say this, but I just thought maybe it would be good to
Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement, Ayya Suwijana. We are going to do that. But first, just to check with Elaine, would you like to come in now, Elaine, before we continue the sutta? Elaine had a hand up.
I was willing to go on, but just a quick reflection. I'm retired, and when life gets really slow and you quit all these activities, you find that there's stuff going on that you can't ignore anymore, right? And that's when I think you have to move ahead and figure out what you're going to do with it. But just a reflection, personal reflection. But
you know, thank you so much, Elaine, because it really just brings in, very briefly, before we move on, just to say, yeah, you're bringing in that kind of sense of atape, you know, urgency. And as we face the aging process, yeah, the sort of sense of what's important really starts to clarify, doesn't it? And I really appreciate you bringing that in. And on that note, time is short. Let's go back to the sutta and invite Venerable Kachayana to read on.
I think that is actually a good segue into our next section.
Yeah, totally.
Sort of
So that whole section,
history. Yep.
Wonderful. Please, this is a fairly long section, everybody. So my encouragement is let's all sit and really come into the practice and listen, tune in to the voice of Dharma.
Okay. To get the text. While one dwells thus, mindful and clearly comprehending, diligent, ardent, and resolute, if there arises in one a pleasant feeling, they understand thus: there has arisen in me a pleasant feeling. Now that is dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on this very body. But this body is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. So when the pleasant feeling has arisen in dependence on a body that is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, how could it be permanent? They dwell contemplating impermanence in the body and in pleasant feeling. They dwell contemplating vanishing, contemplating fading away, contemplating cessation, contemplating relinquishment. As they dwell thus, the underlying tendency to lust in regard to the body and in regard to pleasant feeling is abandoned by them. And while one dwells thus, mindful and clearly comprehending, diligent, ardent, and resolute, if there arises in them a painful feeling, they understand thus: there has arisen in me a painful feeling. Now that is dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on just this body. But the body is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. So when the painful feeling has arisen in dependence on a body that is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, how could it be permanent? They dwell contemplating impermanence in the body and in painful feeling. They dwell contemplating vanishing, contemplating fading away, contemplating cessation, contemplating relinquishment. As they dwell thus, the underlying tendency to aversion in regard to the body and in regard to painful feeling is abandoned by them. While one dwells thus, mindful and clearly comprehending, diligent, ardent, and resolute, if there arises in them a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, they understand thus: there has arisen in me a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Now that is dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on just this body. But this body is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. So when the neither painful nor pleasant feeling has arisen in dependence on a body that is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, how could it be permanent? He dwells contemplating impermanence in the body and in neither painful nor pleasant feeling. They dwell contemplating vanishing, contemplating fading away, contemplating cessation, contemplating relinquishment. As they dwell thus, the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to the body and in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling is abandoned by them.
So we'll pause here. Thank you so much, Venerable Katrina, for your reading and just really taking in this profound teaching that the feelings come and go incredibly quickly, like bubbles, and so does the body. And as we were just saying, wasn't it, Elaine, we get to notice as the body ages, the body changes more rapidly, perhaps. A sense of kind of deterioration is a great teacher for us. And so here the Buddha's pointing to how, when we truly comprehend this situation, changing feelings and a changing body, the mind quite naturally will become dispassionate. Slowly but surely we start to let go of our attachments, don't we? And these beautiful words, fading away, the relinquishing, the cessation, these ways in which we find ourselves sort of stepping away from the identification, which is stepping away from suffering. So much there. I'd like to invite anyone else who'd like to pick up on any parts of these passages, anything you'd like to bring in, any questions, any reflections. Ayya Suwijana.
Yes. If I just wanted to point out that there's the three kinds of Vedana, and then the three kinds of unwholesome tendencies, underlying tendencies, and associated with the pleasant feeling, the feeling of lust. Not only they contemplate how the body is impermanent, and this feeling is impermanent, and then as they're having the contemplating cessation, contemplating fading away and relinquishment, these things are happening kind of naturally. Then that underlying tendency towards lust or attachment towards the pleasant feeling is fading away. And then the aversion to the unpleasant feeling is also fading away. And then the ignorance is associated with the neutral. So there's the three kinds of unwholesome tendencies associated with each type of the three types of Vedana. So this is kind of unraveling that connection by seeing how all of this is impermanent. And then you're also bringing in non-self. You're emphasizing if this body is going to cease, what is this body mine? Is this body a self? Are these feelings a self? So I just wanted to point it out, the relationship between the underlying tendencies and the Vedana.
Sadhu. Thank you so much, Ayya. Very important. Isn't it just seeing that, the conditioning that's so quick for us, pleasant feeling, moving towards, unpleasant feeling, moving away, neither pleasant nor painful, kind of ignorance or kind of not noticing that can happen, and to be able to unravel, to see that conditioning and not to follow it, and to see it then falling away. And all within this context of change, to have that in mind in a way, isn't it, friends? To keep remembering impermanence. There's a flow, there's a constant change happening here. And this is a very rich section, and worth looking at this sutta again and again, because like so many of the teachings of the Buddha, it's all here. The entire path is here for us, and this description of the way it is and the way that mindfulness can penetrate these layers and come to the reality of, yes, change, not self, and moving away from ignorance towards understanding. Wonderful. I see Julie, did you want to say something? Maybe not. There was just a little something in the chat box which I've never figured out how to follow. Click on let's have a quick look at the chat box. Double click. Okay. No, just sadhus.
Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Julie. Yeah.
I'm learning all of this stuff and how to figure out the suttas, and it's driving me crazy. But then also I also understood that Bhikkhu Bodhi does not believe in the ordination of women as monks. Is that correct? I don't know. But at any rate, I just wanted oh no, that's not correct. Oh, good.
Let's dealt with that one then. Okay, next.
Yeah, but then also I just wanted to thank the Venerable Bhikkhuni for reading in a kind of gender neutral subject, because I think that's like one way very easily for me to like shed a lot of stuff and just be able to focus. So I really appreciate that.
Sadhu, yeah, good point. Yes, you're bringing in the whole world of gender. A cause of great dukkha for some, if not all of us. We can just be aware of that, and how the Buddha, I think the Buddha's teachings really do transcend these ways in which we separate out, and perhaps even in a deluded way, make this better and that worse and so forth. None of this has a place really in the human heart. And it's just very good to try and allow the text to be inclusive. So thank you very much, Venerable.
And that's Susan at the door. I'm going to go see Susan.
Okay, Venerable Krishna has to disappear for a moment. We're awaiting a visitor who needs some attention. But yeah, and Bhikkhu Bodhi is very supportive of Bhikkhuni ordination. So he's a scholar. He's a great scholar, as we know, most of us know. He's done all these extraordinary translations of the major Pali Canon texts. Huge amount of work over many, many years. Great gratitude to him. And he's also explored the texts that relate to ordination procedures and so forth, and more or less shown that there are no obstacles to, of course, to women ordaining. So he's a sort of an ally in that sense, or a supporter in that sense, simply supporting the truth and the scholarly understanding of the scriptures that we have. So thank you, Julie, for that. And anyone else like to come in at this point? Coming back to the text, coming back to these passages. Sheila.
Thank you so much. Just my reflection, and I just wanted to thank you for, with regard to neutral feelings, my understanding has been, and what I've heard in Dhamma talks and reading, neutral being neither pleasant or unpleasant, but I learned quite a bit in the past few moments where neutral is also ignorance, and then the piece of teaching that I find most important, moving from ignorance to understanding. That is the first time that I've received that particular teaching with that framework. So thank you. It really helped illuminate neither pleasant nor, and not only illuminate, deepen that the neutral feelings that do arise in contemplation of feelings. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sheila. It's really good to focus on that aspect, isn't it? Because, you know, a lot of our formal practice can be an experience of finding it difficult to notice anything obvious going on. So pleasant, unpleasant, these are very obvious for us, but a lot of our experience is actually neither pleasant nor unpleasant, particularly when we're sitting peacefully, you know, trying to open to what can be experienced in this moment. And this is a great encouragement for us to really investigate the neither pleasant nor painful. This is the third aspect of feelings. It's huge. And yeah, to see how we can move through and notice the connection, the sort of tendency maybe when there's nothing very dramatic happening for us to sort of switch off. And our practice is one of waking up and opening up to the more subtle experiences and see where that takes us. It's just a huge part of our practice. And I'm so glad that it has this quality of illuminating and deepening for you there, Sheila. I recommend everyone to, you know, after this group, to sit down and read through the sutta again and just give it some chance to really percolate through. This is contemplation, isn't it? We don't just read a teaching once, we allow it to illuminate our practice, come back to it again and again, let it be a week-long practice or longer to study, to really contemplate, bring into the temple these texts. Anybody else like to come in at this point? Okay, I think it would be very lovely to move on. Oh, yes, Ayya Suwijana.
Yeah, just before we move on, I just wanted to point out that word ignorance. There's like ignore in it. So I think that is something to think about when we just kind of tune out anything that's not, really slamming our sense gates, something attractive or something repulsive. And we think the whole world is either really great or horrible. And we're ignoring everything else. So that's one good way to say, oh, I'm bringing awareness to just the feeling of this cup in my hand or something. And this would help with the Satipatthana practice. We're just really being aware of the contact that's neutral, as you were saying. So that brings awareness, which helps support wisdom. And so that's just what encouragement I would give to others. And yeah, please, let's go on, because it's going to speak more to that as we go further into the sutta.
Sadhu. Thank you so much, Ayya, for that beautiful reflection. Okay, let's continue. Back to the sutta now. So continuing on, if one feels a pleasant feeling, one understands it is impermanent. One understands it is not held to. One understands it is not delighted in. If we feel a painful feeling, we can understand it's impermanent. Understand it is not held to. Understand it is not delighted in. And if we feel a neither pleasant nor painful feeling, we can understand it's impermanent. It's not held to. It is not delighted in. If we feel a pleasant feeling, feel it detached. If we feel a painful feeling, feel it detached. If we feel a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, feel it detached. When we feel a feeling terminating with the body, we can understand, yeah, I feel a feeling terminating with the body. When we feel a feeling terminating with life, we can understand, I feel a feeling terminating with life. And we can understand, with the breakup of this body, following the exhaustion of life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cool right here. Just as an oil lamp burns depending on the oil and the wick, and with the exhaustion of the oil and the wick, it is extinguished through lack of fuel. So too, when one feels a feeling terminating with the body, a feeling terminating with life, we can understand, with the breakup of this body, following the exhaustion of life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cool right here. So, dear friends, there is the guidance, isn't it? The guidance for life, the guidance for life right up until its end. And how, to me, this is incredibly, in a way, comforting, in a way, sustaining, because this is what's needed. This is what is to be done. And if we really focus our attention on this teaching, we don't have time to flail around, to sort of rail against our fate or to make a problem out of reality, but rather we are pinned to the point, aren't we, of what's being experienced right now, right up until there's no longer any experience. So this is a tremendous teaching, what we could share perhaps with people who are facing, we're all facing death, but people who may be, really needing some sense of guidance and support coming up to this time of the great letting go. What a beautiful sutta, what a wonderful sutta, this teaching from the Buddha to the hospital patients. Any comments, reflections? If anyone would like to come back to any of these particular phrases, just grabbing the book here so I can have a look myself. I love the expression, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cool right here. Cool. This word nibbana, doesn't it mean to cool down? The word nibbana, apparently in the time of the Buddha, and also in some languages even today that have very similar words to Pali, such as Sinhalese, they'll have an expression for when you put a cooked dish. Tell me if I'm right, Ruanthi and Maitri. When you have a cooked dish and you put it somewhere to cool down, you say you're going to let it nibbana. You have this, yeah. Nibbana. Nibbanaing is cooling down. And this quality then of letting go, letting things be, this cooling quality, the cooling quality of letting go. How beautiful. I have a question in the room or a comment in the room from Satina. Lovely. Come on over. Would you like to just perch yourself here so we can see you? Okay, everybody. I'll just move the camera a little bit. That won't work. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I just have a couple of reflections. Thank you for the rich sutta and the rich sharing from everybody. Kind of just gathering all of these. So it's a couple of them offerings, reflections. I think it is so important, the context that the Buddha is speaking in, that everyone here is very close to dying. They can really touch it. And I really feel that in the second part where we talk about clear comprehension, where he's talking about, this continuity of practice, doing one thing and another. I don't remember where I got this phrase, but I kind of get this feeling that we're being taught to die into each moment, because I think if we rush, it's kind of almost like, well, where are you rushing to? Well, you were just rushing to the grave. I think it was in the chanting books here is I forget the phrase, something like the achievement, like death is the achievement of my life. So this sense that, first that just dying into each moment, and then also I feel that the sutta really clearly, the teaching on the fathom long body, that everything comes from this body, that he's saying that in the part right before this one where he says, everything is dependent on just this body, like from the body, everything, then everything else comes. Yeah. And then I always just reflect on Vedana, because oftentimes I hear it translated more like feeling tone or valence. It's almost like to me, it almost feels like a sense before the sense. Like we have the 6 sense doors, but this is almost like a pre-sense, or it's so subtle that the experience of Vedana it's like sometimes it's like a lighter than a down feather. It's so light. It's so, we have the water bubble simile, of course, but it's such a small thing, and then it propels everything else. It almost feels like this, how everything else falls from that. Everything else kind of starts here, and then there's this exponential growth of everything kind of ending in suffering. But in the beginning, it's such a small thing that goes so far. So those are my reflections. Thank you for listening.
Satu. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Satina. Yeah, isn't it? I think that's a beautiful reflection on feeling. And again, it brings to mind for me, Satina, the way the Buddha's saying in Satipatthana Sutta and also here, just the feeling, in the feeling, or just to be not embellishing that feeling at all, because that tendency is so quick. And it brings to mind for me how we're touching into the, as Ayya Suwajana was saying, the neither pleasant nor painful. And Sheila was pointing to the neither pleasant nor painful, i.e. very subtle feeling. It's really, this is a very important area for us to explore, because of that tendency to seek the more dramatic or the more obvious, and to live in that, as you say, like running. We can be running and just to wake up to the subtle and the very light touch that feeling is, and let it be just that. You said a great deal. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. We have Venerable Katrina back. So good. We've just read to the end of the sutta, and we're reflecting a little bit on just the last passages and really taking in, the Buddha's teaching here, which takes us all the way to the end point, doesn't it, friends? I mean, this cooling down, the invitation when it comes to the end of life. Can we let it all go? Can we not have any unfinished business? Can we let everything cool down right there? And we can. And this is a great encouragement for us to consider very deeply the opportunity that's coming for us, isn't it? It's like Buddhists, we're not shying away from death. We're actually kind of moving towards it with great interest, even despite perhaps some feelings of misgivings, fear, or concern about the process. But actually we have the guidance, don't we, to take us all the way with a very open mind and heart, learning from every moment of this journey. So we can, we're not shying away from this. And indeed, we have the opposite attitude towards birth, don't we? It's like we're not inviting birth here. We're not wishing to come back. We're not celebrating that aspect. No, we're really getting interested in the other end of that spectrum, and how we can glean and make the very most of these precious moments, ready for the end of life. Marion.
Hi again. I kind of had a recent loss, really tragic loss in my family about 2 months ago, and I've always been scared of death. And something that has helped me was that kind of like that thought of like, nothing's permanent, and like the universe is so like, for example, like people live to like 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, right? But the world has been here for many, many, many years. And I'm sure that people come back and go, like you were saying, like Buddhists kind of not want to come back, because that means they have the karma that comes back, right? They want to be to the end of the side so they can reach nirvana. So I thought that was interesting how it says like when you are at the end, everything cools off. It's kind of like when the lava comes out of the volcano and then it's like over, right? It's like everything and then peace. So I thought that was really interesting. Yeah.
Thank you, Marion, very much. Yeah, our programming is so much to feel that cooling down and stopping and ending is a problem. We don't want that. But actually, really, we can just open to this very significant shift of attitude that the Buddha is allowing us, that he's pointing out to us, that actually these are the very things that we want to move towards. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to hold on to. There is peace. There is bliss in cessation. Can we taste that? Can we experience that in our practice? And can we open to this on a greater scale, that the more we let go, the more peace we can experience? Is there anything to hold on to? Is there any agitation here that we want to keep? And it's a very, it's sort of going in the opposite direction to the worldly mind. And so this is something to consider again and again. Really contemplate the coolness, the cessation, letting go. These qualities, we can't make too much of them. Thank you. Smita.
Thank you so much. Ayya Suvijana, you are absolutely right. This sutta does explain what body and body is and what feeling and feeling is. It's so beautiful. I feel like printing it out and framing on my wall or something and going through it like every day. And I also would like to say that Sitina, nailed it with her beautiful reflections. It seems like this sutta is talking about keeping in mind the dependent origination aspect, that, you are only able to feel because you have a body, and that the body is impermanent. And now if you were to replace this impermanent word with body is liable to die, that seems to make you really realize that, yes, you should give up this control. If especially if you have an unpleasant feeling, you want to try to change it. But if you think of, yes, I'm gonna die, I could die tomorrow, then there's a greater effect of letting go. Because I have an analytical mind. So if I were simply to say, oh, this, it's impermanent, body's impermanent, part of my mind would be, okay, it's impermanent, but I still have 50 more years to go, assuming I would die when I'm 90 or 100. So you still want to hold on to those feelings, those memories, because you feel like you have, maybe at least 10 years or so, if you think that you live a healthy life. But if you think that, oh, I might actually die tomorrow, no matter how healthy I am, so many middle-aged and young people are dying these days, I could be one of those, then it's easier to let go of the feelings. So I would say, Sitina, she had very beautiful reflections. So just saying that. Thank you.
Sadhu. Yeah, thank you so much, Sitina. Isn't it wonderful how we can all offer in, our reflections on these teachings, and it's just so nourishing to hear from one another and to be able to learn from one another's perspectives. All this wisdom in the room, in the Zoom room, is really something to cherish. Great gratitude to everybody for all of your contributions and for your patience and listening also, for your practice, in short. So, dear friends, we've come up to the end of this session. We can finish by paying homage to the teacher. And just before we finish, I want to mention that on Tuesday evening, we have Ayatata Loka with us off of her retreat. Her month of solitary practice will be ending very soon, and she'll be coming along on Tuesday evening to speak on Dhammanupassana. So please tune in, live or later. Should be a very wonderful evening of Dhamma. So big gratitude to Ayya Suvijana for being with us. Before we pay respects to the Buddha, let's pay respects to our wonderful senior bhikkhuni.
Nati te saranamanyam, Bhutto Dhammo, Sangho te saranamuram, etena satyavajena sutite, Hotu sabada.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And together, if you'd like to face the Buddha or the Buddha in your heart, bow to the Buddha in your heart. We can chant together to conclude this meeting. Araham Sama Sambuddho Bhagavan Odam Bhagavantam Abhivademi Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammai Namasami Satipatthana Bhagavato Sangha Sangho Sangha Namami.
Thank you, Ayya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sadhu,
Thank
sadhu,
you.
thank
Sadhu.
you.
Have a good week. See you
Thank
Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Ayya.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Venerable.